Okay, so we just watched a video on veggies and how they're grown, root vegetables in particular. And we learned a little bit about pop art. And pop art is, like we learned in that video, all about elevating everyday things to art. And a lot of the pop artists used food to elevate, to make it seem kind of fancy by painting them. But it was usually junk food, things like sweets and candies and kind of processed food that you would buy in the store. But I thought it would be cool to elevate healthy food to everyday art, like vegetables, so that we could kind of show the school, maybe we can do a little wall of vegetables, how important eating healthy is. So we've learned a little bit about vegetables, we've learned about pop art, and now we're going to put that all into this awesome picture that we're going to use both colored pencils and Sharpie and oil pastel to do. So, like always, we're going to use our elements of art to help us draw by breaking things down into simple lines and shapes and colors. But I also want us to think about the principles of art, in particular, balance. And that means, is this side of the paper, does your eye go to it as evenly as this? So if I had like a big carrot here and a little tiny tomato here, it wouldn't be balanced because there would be more stuff on this side than on this side. So we do want to think about where we're putting our vegetables so that it looks balanced, and so that your eye moves through the work and kind of flows over all of the pieces. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw my horizon, or my ground line. So half of our vegetables are going to be underneath the ground and half are going to be above. So I want a line that goes basically through, I'm sorry you guys, this camera keeps being really blurry. I want a line that goes through the middle of my paper, so that I can put half of the vegetable on top and half of it on the bottom. Let's see if I can focus now that I have a line. There, okay, so that helped. Again, I'm sorry about the camera with recording video. It just sometimes auto focuses on the wrong spot and it makes it kind of blurry. But I promise I'll keep stopping and trying to get it to refocus. So, we talked about beets, carrots, onions, potatoes are all grown as root vegetables underneath the ground, radishes. So I'm going to start with a carrot because we all know that one's probably the easiest. Now I'm going to go a little bit below the ground, and I'm going to start by breaking my carrot into a basic shape. And I always use, you could, break things into half shapes too. So like the top of a carrot is basically like a half circle. Remember, we're going to draw light until we get it right. And if you make a mistake, leave that mistake and redraw it again. And once you get it how you like it, you can go back and erase the mistake. Okay, so then it's basically like a V shape. But unlike a lot of vegetables you see in the grocery store, if you've ever seen fresh vegetables grown, they're not perfect, okay? They're kind of wobbly and wiggly, and they're not straight lines. So if your line kind of goes in and out and in and out and in and out, that's fine. In fact, it's going to make it look even more real. And normally a carrot has kind of a long, thin root that they cut off a lot of time in the store so that you can't see it, but it kind of gets like to a string at the end. And then the top of the carrot has a stem that kind of stays really close until it gets above the ground, and then it bursts out and it's really bushy. So it's going to have a few lines because there's a few different stems coming up. And once it gets up, I'm only going to draw in pencil the main stem. All the curly bushy stuff I'm going to do in oil pastel. But I want a basic guide for that, so I'm just very lightly going to draw the main stem that the leaves are connected to. And we'll go back and draw the actual leaves with oil pastel. But just to give you a sense, I'll do a light outline. It kind of will go like this, and it will be you know, kind of everywhere. So I'll just have a few curlicues there. Now, the next one that we're going to do is, let's do the beet. Beets are something that I think are just like the most beautiful food. They're just this bright purpley red. Sometimes you can get yellow ones. And they're kind of a circle shape, although they're a little wider than they are tall. And they kind of come almost like a heart. They come to a point like the carrot, but they're on the top, they're rounded. So the bottom kind of reminds me of the bottom of a heart. It kind of curves. And then there's this like long little root, just like the carrot. And this root acts to draw water into the plant. Okay. And then the leaf of a beet is not as like curly and wispy as the carrot. It's going to have a few leaves, but it's kind of going to look more like lettuce or like little cloud lettuces. So I'm kind of drawing it like as if it were clouds. And maybe I'll do a third one, kind of going up. Okay, so now I've got my beet and my carrot. Let's do the green onion. So green onion is going to be kind of long and slim and slender, and it's going to go a little further down. And then it's going to slowly come out just to a small, skinny oval. A skinny oval. And see how you can kind of barely see the screen? I'm drawing light so that if I make a mistake, I can erase it. If I were to draw dark, it would be very hard to erase it. So now I'm going to do a little curved line to make it look 3D, like it's going around. And then it's going to have a bunch of roots, not one long one like the beet. It's going to have a bunch. They almost look like hairs. And these little roots are what draws the water from the soil up into the onion. So then it's going to go up, 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 up. And once it gets a good amount above the ground, it's going to split off into a few different pieces. I'm going to do 3. Erase that a little bit. All right. So there's our green onion, and now we need garlic and potatoes. I'm going to do potatoes on the end because they tend to get, they're bigger, and I think it will just kind of overtake the whole thing if I do it now. So I'm going to do a little space, because when we grow fresh vegetables, they need space and soil to grow. So I don't want to do them all right next to each other. And garlic, you know what? I'm doing this wrong. Garlic is going to be kind of like the beet, but turned upside down. So it is like the heart, like a bottom of a heart turned up. So it's going to start thin and go out, curve out. Start thin and curve out, and then curve back around. And there's little pods in garlic. I don't know if you guys have ever cooked with it. So I'm going to do this and this to show that there's little cloves or pods that you can break apart. And it's going to curve up into a stem. And it kind of looks a little bit like the green onion on top, but it's a little shorter, and then it usually has a few more leaves. So, and it kind of curves more like that. I'm going to do maybe 4. Okay, so there's my garlic, and again, just like the green onion, it's got kind of these roots, these like hair-like roots that come down. Okay, so the next one is potatoes, and we're going to do these as if they're just going right off the page. Potatoes, first I'm just going to draw the actual potatoes. They grow in clumps, so there's normally 1 or 3 or 4 or 5 potatoes per plant, and they kind of look like giant jelly beans. I'm going to do 2, and then just the hint of a 3rd going off the page. And they're kind of surrounded by those hair-like roots. That's what's attaching them. So there's just kind of like wavy lines around them. And they come together and all form back to this root. that starts. And the top has more of like a flower-like stem, maybe a few branches off of it. It's kind of, and then just a regular like leaf, like this. Okay, so now that we have it in pencil, we're going to outline it. I think in Sharpie we should do. So basically anywhere where you see pencil, we're going to draw in Sharpie. Now that's why we're not even going to bother going back and drawing dark, because we're going to do that with marker, so it's not worth it. Pick the line that you liked the best and outline that. Anything you don't like, you can go back and erase after you've drawn it in Sharpie. Now this, because I'm going to go over an oil pastel, I'm only going to do just like the beginning of the roots, and then I'm going to just leave the rest for oil pastel, because it's going to be really hard to draw that with the marker and have it look as wispy and kind of willowy. The oil pastel is just going to look better. So, but this one, since it's such a clean line, we can do this one with marker. So the carrot, I think, is the only one. The carrot and then the hair-like roots are the only ones that I'm not going to trace in marker. Everything else I am going to trace. Don't trace the line, the ground. You know how to do that line first? Do not trace that line through the veggies, because these veggies are in front of the ground. So I'm going to draw the ground and stop when I hit a stem. 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 Stop. Okay, now we're going to draw the green onion. Again, I'm not going to do these hair-like roots. I'm going to save that for oil pastel. So the actual vegetables, we're going to do an oil pastel, and then the background, the soil and sky, we're going to do in colored pencil. And because colored pencil doesn't get quite as bright as oil pastel, it's really going to make the vegetables pop out, which is what we want. Okay. Go slow, because permanent marker, as you know, you cannot erase, and you know my rule on only one sheet of paper. So if you do make a mistake, we can try and turn it into something else, cover it up with maybe another vegetable, or you know, raise your hand and I'll help you come up with some ideas for how we could fix it. But really just try and go slow so we don't need to do that. And again, none of these need to be perfect. The whole point of art is to kind of express how you see certain things. So it should be different. It should be your view of what these vegetables look like, not my view. It shouldn't look just like mine. Okay, now that we have it outlined, then we're ready to color. And next week, that's what we'll be doing, is going back with oil pastel and coloring in first, I think, the veggies. We'll do those first, and really getting them colored really well, and then we'll go back with colored pencil and try and get in the soil and then the sky, and then if you want to add anything else, like maybe you would add like a caterpillar, or you know, a flower growing in the background, or a butterfly, or you know, bees, because bees are really important to help vegetables grow. So you can kind of add all that stuff in at the end once we're done coloring.